What instantly eliminate your attraction to someone? Story 1. Just about an hour ago. Been with my G-Fen for 3 years. We've had our ups and downs, but I recently learned she cheated on me. I tried to make it through the holidays for both our sakes, but just today we got into an argument and she said I'm a private area and not a real man. Answer: good for you. And I mean that sincerely. This gave me flashbacks to my last relationship, where I gave her way too much rope and benefit of the doubt. The result was years of verbal, physical, and emotional mental abuse, which is increasingly hard to get out of the longer it goes on. Proud of you for putting your foot down and cutting her off. No abuse is easy to take, but the verbal abuse I got on a daily basis was the worst to handle over the physical and emotional stuff. It really chips away at your entire sense of self, and I know how hard it is to completely cut an SO off. Story 2. Finding out that, in the end, she was the person I always suspected she was. Superficial, manipulative, and fake, among others. It literally went from drooling and admiring her when looking at her and proposing a very serious plan to not caring about her anymore. Story 3. I was in a situationship. It wasn't too serious, but the chemistry was definitely there to maybe become more serious. I told my friend about her. This friend is also someone who I had previously pursued, but respected her telling me we were just friends, and all had been good. I admit, part of me was still attracted to her, but it was barely a fleeting thought at this point. My friend gets awkward and silent. Her entire body language changes. I catch on quick, and I don't bring up the situationship again, figuring I'd made her uncomfortable. Later, over dinner, she tells me that she actually does like me. Feelings are suddenly flooding back. I was so caught off guard, I ask her what changed. Her response was, "I think you're a lot less pathetic now." Any and all attraction died instantly. Made me realize her affection was purely transactional, and that she was keeping me around as a safe option. Yikes. Story 4. I remembered this earlier today reading another post, but was kinda irrelevant for me to reply there with, so I'll post it here. When I was about 14, 15, I dated a 17-year-old guy. Around that Christmas, the Nintendo Wii was super new, and he really wanted one, and was asking his mom. She told him she wasn't getting one because it was too expensive. She'd already told me that she had in fact got one, but obviously wanted to keep it a surprise. And dude flipped out and threw a baby tantrum about it, insulting her, etc. And as far as I had seen, he literally never wanted for anything. Both his parents were lawyers. They were not poor. We broke up just after Christmas. I could never unsee him being such a prick to his mom. Story 5. Reciting all the intimacy activities they've done with other people. Let's just say that we're an intimacy-positive person. Not that that's a bad thing, but it was an instant turnoff. Cool, you were a restaurant manager and gave BJ's to the chef every morning in the cooler. That's not something I want to hear, especially when I didn't ask. Story 6. She hid her dog, who she said was terrified of men. The dog adored me and even curled up on me. She was a Saluki cross rescue, to fall asleep. The woman got jealous and used to kick the dog out of the room. One time, the dog growled when she tried to remove her from laying on me, so she hit her. We argued, and I left. I miss that dog. Part of me wishes that she'd give the dog up to a rescue. She worked long hours and left her on her own, and that I could then adopt her. Sadly, never happened. TLDR, she hit her dog. Story 7. Having a temper they can't regulate. Manage your goddamn emotions. I have no time for that. And definitely don't take it out on my others. I had an ex blow up at me over the most random tiny thing on a trip once, and I never recovered from the ick. It just made him look so small. Story 8. Since all the good ones are taken, I'll add gambling. A woman I was hitting it off with invited me to come hang out with her at a restaurant in our neighborhood. Story 9. Practically overnight, his personality tanked. From his ego, eliminate the attraction for me and a lot of other people. Story 10. Being flat out dumb. I worked at a car dealership with a girl who wanted a new car, but had a minimum low-wage job in the showroom. I told her she needed to get a loan, and she insisted she wouldn't need a loan. I asked her if she had cash. When she said no, I told her she need a loan. We were stuck in this loop for a minute until I realized She thought she could just come in to the dealer and make payments like she was buying the car in layaway, but still driving it around. Eliminate it for me. Story 11. I beat him 4 times in a row playing dominoes. He then pounded his fists on the game pieces, flipped the table while stomping around, screaming about how it wasn't possible or fair. It was kind of a slow-motion memory. I remember thinking in the moment that my daughter, around 6 to 7 U at the time, would never act this childish, especially about a game. To give it more ick, he tried laughing it off to make light of his actions after I picked up his mess. I think we lasted about a week or 2 after that incident. I couldn't unsee him as a grown child. Games are supposed to be fun. By the way, I didn't cheat the game, and I'm not sure how one would do that in dominoes. Story 12. She laughed when I told her about a time I, male, was intimacy assaulted. We were 5 years into a 10-year relationship at the time, and I didn't realize how much it bothered me until much later. But that was the moment I stopped trusting her, and the day our intimacy life pretty much died. Story 13. You should cancel your plans with your friend and hang out with me instead. Seems harmless, I suppose, but flip the scenario where a friend was asking me to cancel with her to hang with them, and I knew she would not appreciate it. Just made me think she would give me a hard time with my prior commitments on a regular basis. Story 14. Years ago, I was mingling at a bar, and this smoking hot blonde girl was eyeballing me. So I bought her a drink, and one thing led to another. Then she invited me to her place. We barely made it to her house without getting it on in my car. We rushed in through the front door, and the smell of urine just hammered my senses. Lo and behold, her front room had at least 30 cats. My libido instantly ceased. I immediately responded and stated, "I gotta get home. I just remembered I forgot to let my dog out. Sorry, I'll call you tomorrow," and ran to my car. Story 15. He mentioned that GHB can be really fun when used properly. GHB can be used as a date violation substances. I excused myself to the bathroom and then ran out of the bar. Edit. This was a first date. He mentioned this about 1 hour into the date. Story 16. Narcissism, misogyny, and acting like a pig about intimacy. Also, being racist and being unkind about or to people who are poor, disabled, mentally ill, ND, etc. Basically, just being a gross human. Weaponized incompetence. So many more things. Shall I write a dissertation? Story 17. Acting like they know women's experiences better than I know my own lived experience, i.e., all women have high pain tolerance. Bro, I cry at the dentist like a baby when I get a filling because I can feel pain no matter how much numbing they use. High pain tolerance? More like high tolerance to anything that's supposed to help with pain. Story 18. She made a racist joke about Asians. I don't remember what it was, but it was on the ching-chong, do an accent, pull the eyes back level. This was a left-leaning, college-educated white woman who up to that point had said nothing negative about Asian people and was actually a bit of a weeb. For the record, I'm Chinese American. Story 19. Lack of hygiene and self-awareness. This was early on. I had been on like 2 dates with this girl. We went to this one restaurant and got this thin crust pizza, and while we were eating, she kept wiping her hands on her skirt. There were napkins on the table, so I thought that was a little weird. Then we went back to her place. She has a 1-bedroom, 1.5-bath condo. Well, the half bath downstairs is very close to the living room. Like, if you open the door, it almost hits the arm of the sofa. So, she needs to use the restroom. She could have very easily walked up the stairs and used her bathroom, and everything would have been out of sight, out of mind. But instead, she decides to use the downstairs half bath. The door and the walls were so thin, and she just let loose, like farting and shoot, like I have rarely heard before. And to top it off, she did not wash her hands for long enough. I did hear the water turned on, and I think I heard the squirt of the soap dispenser, but she didn't wash them for an appropriate amount of time. I found it hard to believe that she wouldn't think that sound would travel to my ears. Like I was 4 feet away from her, basically. I just couldn't get that out of my head. Like, I was just done. I ended up staying for another hour, but made an excuse and got out of there. I never saw or spoke to her again. Story 20. Ex-girlfriend, when we were maybe 20, 21. We had known each other in high school, but ran in separate circles, so we didn't really know each other. After high school, our friend groups kind of overlapped, and we hit it off really well the first few times we all went out, and ended up dating for a while. Maybe 6 months or so. Apparently, the 6-month mark is when she thought it was okay for her to let loose the fact that she's also incredibly racist. My best friend was a black man, and she was always so polite and friendly with him. And the first time I heard her drop a hard R, I could have sworn I was hearing things. I did a double take and asked her to repeat herself. She did. I asked what the fudge she thought she was doing, and her response was that she thought we were getting really serious, like move in and have a future together, so she could be her real self around me. We got into a huge argument, and I stormed out of her apartment. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. Ironically, that same friend was the one who took my box of stuff from her when she dropped it off. I hadn't told him what had happened, and he didn't understand why she was so cold to him. Story 21. The toxic, prejudiced chip on the shoulder. When they act resentful and petty because they perceive the people that they feel are oppressing them acting the same way. They disparage the behavior in their outgroup as evil and wrong while finding all the rationalizations and recursive reasonings to excuse their in-group's emulation of the same behavior. Story 22. There's this oddly specific thing that a lot of gym bros do, where they'll tell you they need to vent, and one sentence in they'll be like, never mind, I need to stop being so weak. Then do the exact same thing a few days later. Turns a 10 to a 5. Story 23. First date. Back in maybe 2015, she said, "People say that I'm racist because I support Trump, but I'm not racist." A few minutes later, she said something that was racist. Don't remember what exactly. I became happy that she was single, for a completely different reason. Story 24. I was attending the show of a DJ music producer that I was attracted to and thought I had a decent chance with. But as his show started, he stuck his tongue out on stage, and the tongue stayed out for the entire hour-long set. I am not interested in dating Bill the Cat. Story 25. This woman was a tax accountant and hyper type A. She constantly talked down about her younger sister who had BPD and other mental problems. I struggle with depression and anxiety, but I can handle myself pretty well. She also disparaged me for my unorthodox path in schooling and careers. She seemed to have little to no empathy and wasn't interested in being emotionally invested with a partner, it seemed. We had been talking for a while, been on 5 dates or so, and it just never felt right. We were on a date, and I had been having a rough weekend, and I made the mistake of being somewhat vulnerable with her. Her immediate reaction was, "Have you spoken to your therapist about this?" and changed the subject. Her complete lack of compassion, empathy, social tact, and emotional availability was extremely unattractive to me. Story 26. When they take excessive pictures, videos, whenever they go somewhere. I get if you want to have a photo shoot in your own house or something, but when we're out doing stuff and having fun, I am tempted to just ditch you if you can't live in the moment for more than 5 seconds. And yeah, I have zero interest in spending more time with someone like that. Story 27. Didn't have a driver's license. Found out it was due to multiple DUIs. She was also out of work and had been for a while due to being, as it turned out, a barely functioning alcoholic. After dropping that info on me, she said, "I don't want to ever have to work again. I don't care about getting my license back. I just want to find a guy to marry me and take care of me so I can stay home and drink." Nope, I'm out. She did find that guy a few months later, though. It didn't end well. Story 28. Being boring, I'll find someone I deem personally attractive, and then, when I actually get talking to them, it's like talking to a brick wall. They give dry responses, expect me to carry the conversation constantly, have no real personality, no hobbies or interests, and are usually close-minded. These kind of people are really a turnoff for me. Story 29. She raised her voice at our waiter when she brought the check, and that we didn't ask for it yet. I was shocked, to say the least, and I apologized to the waitress, paid the tab, left her, and went home. This is some toddler-level immaturity and disgusting. Story 30. I was talking to a guy at an event one time, and I was thinking I might be interested in him. At some point, he picked up that I was interested, and he immediately stopped talking like a normal person and started negging me and pulling the most ridiculous PUA shoot. I honestly thought it must be a joke at first. It was like he was playing a stereotype of that sort of guy in a comedy skit. I kept trying to have a normal conversation with him because I was still thinking this was probably just a joke and we'd be able to get back on track soon. But he kept talking like he was following a how to get laid script in his head that he'd memorized, regardless of what I actually said in response to anything. In the end, I just had to cut him off mid-sentence and walk away, saying I had somewhere I needed to be. Story 31. When she started comparing me to her previous partner in a derogatory and humiliating way, I am now forced to adapt to you. He used to be like that with me. It'll take me some time to get used to you. Needless to say, we didn't last much longer, thank God, but I once loved that woman like crazy. Story 32. Disrespect, dishonesty, misogyny, bigotry, sexist, ableist, racist, insecurities, dislike dog, especially mine, horrible hygiene, teeth especially, severe mommy-daddy issues, guys who's looking for trad wife, labeling ambitions as gold digging, refuse therapy, no friends, no interest outside of work, to name a few. Story 33. That was one of the dumbest things I had ever heard another adult say with full confidence. Lady boner neutralized. Story 34. Rude to waitress. Wed had a fun night out and an even better night in, then went out for brunch and was immediately rude to a busy, short-staffed server. She was also in the industry and did that "I'm a waitress too, and you never" yada yada yada. I got a glare from the waitress. She never understood why it was a deal breaker. Story 35. He was into some fairly violent kinks and decided the best way to tell me was mid-sexing, in the form of a paragraph telling me all the ways he wanted to strangle me and hit me repeatedly, but in a intimacy way, until I was crying and begging him to stop. Like, from vanilla to that. And I had mentioned to him I have some prior issues since I was SA'd in the past. It was really distressing to me to suddenly have that. I just couldn't really get over it. He was sweet and handsome, but it just eliminated the spark for me, especially since we hadn't known each other long. Story 36. How men speak to their sisters, mothers, etc. If they don't respect the key women in their lives, they sure as hell are not going to respect me. Also, finding out someone is a Cheeto supporter. I could feel so much connection with them, find them so sexy, and as soon as it comes out, they even condone a bigot, let alone have actively supported one. I instantly find them so ugly and truly repulsive, and there's no going back. Story 37. Being dismissive of me. I feel like a narcissist, but I've always struggled to speak out and to feel heard. This is, of course, different from being heard, and unfortunately, I operate more on feelings in this sense. I had a very, very long crush on a coworker. At some point, he was basically very dismissive of me, for whatever I felt like no reason. I generally don't even mind this, so long as it's justified. Like, if I'm wrong, then whatever. But it was just plain dismissiveness about a feature that he was the primary reviewer on. Story 38. Love bombing. I dislike false nonchalance as much as the next person, but there was a guy I was talking to earlier this year who would ask to call constantly, send me over an hour's worth of Instagram reels and TikToks every day about romance, and would get angry at me when I said nothing in return when he called us soulmates. We went on one date. We had met twice. Story 39. He was a guy from my old workplace. He had 2 cats, a boy and a girl, and one day he just came up to me just to tell me he doesn't want his girl cat anymore and is thinking of abandoning her in the streets. Right then, I lost all feelings towards him, and I'm stuck with the prettiest girl cat ever. Story 40. Two things, actually. Had a crush on a coworker a few years ago. She was very attractive. We shared a few interests. But more importantly, I felt at ease around her, and I had a feeling she felt the same way around me. It was very casual. And I had learned from her mom, also a coworker, she had gotten out of a bad relationship not too long ago, where her ex cheated on her repeatedly. One day, I asked her out, and she apologetically said no because she had a boyfriend. So I then apologized to her, since I believed she was single. No, it's just a lot of on and off between us. Okay. Well, it happens. Then one day, her boyfriend dropped by the store. Indian guy. He was very short and not very hygienic. Unshaven, seemingly dirty clothes, wore sandals, and he smelled, like, badly. We worked in a store, and some customers genuinely walked away from him in disgust due to his body odor. Honest to God, I have no idea why she was attracted to this guy. But by this point, I had already lost most interest in her. They had already broken up again and got back together in the same week as when I asked her out. I suppose it was a moment where I thought, wait, you didn't give me a chance because you have a thing for this dude? I can't really put it to words, and I know it sounds bad, but I can't really control emotions when I feel them. The moment I lost full interest in her, and what actually eliminated what little interest I had, was when we talked about modern art. I'm not too big a fan of modern art, but she was. She then mentioned she was in some kind of art club, where she works on a project to let her creativity flow, and she showed me a picture of it. It's not finished yet, though. It was a few coat hangers on a drying rack, with some colored paper around it. It was at that point I realized this girl was definitely not for me. And after I quit working at the store, I found out from a coworker that she's a single mum now. Apparently, the boyfriend decided to make the on and off relationship permanently off when she got pregnant. Go figure. Story 41. I went out with the hottest girl, and I'm suffering through dinner waiting to get laid. And I noticed as she was yapping, she kept pausing and leaning over her shoulder and making a thpt sound. She was spitting her unwanted food into the back of the booth. I was done immediately. I don't care how hot she was. Story 42. She told me she was still attracted to the garage band singer who had pressured her into aborting their child, and abortion she regretted. I had been courting her for about 6 months. I was mad about her. We went out twice a week. I respected her too much even to kiss her in all that time. My heart turned to stone that day. I walked her home, said goodnight, and never saw her again. Story 43. She shoot herself on our very first date. Ran down her leg and everything. I had to drive her smelling the underwear of an overworked Parisian adult worker who eats nothing but zesty cheese Doritos. And she asked if I wanted to come inside. No thank you. Story 44. Hottest chick imaginable. The stereotype of hot barista you dream about. All she did was talk about her physical insecurities. Like, girl, you're a 1310. Stop. We were gonna hook up, but halfway through I just couldn't. She wanted to have intimacy in complete darkness, so I couldn't see her naked. Pitch black is not a good look on someone that hot. Story 45. 1. He told me I'd be real cute if I lost 20 pounds. 2. Basically just treated people like shoot. 3. Asked me out on a date, offered to pay for dinner, then left like a 5 tip to a perfectly good waitress. I only had a few bucks in my wallet, but I tossed it on the table because she definitely deserved a better tip. Story 46. One guy I had mutual feelings with said he wasn't interested in a relationship, but suggested making out behind a bus stop. I had never kissed anyone at that point, and had never had a boyfriend, so I was completely shocked, but also curious about what he'd say next, so I didn't give a clear answer. He started saying that chances like this only come once in a lifetime, which, honestly, made me want to laugh out loud. Such nonsense. The second guy, fudge a goat. I think that says enough. Story 47. I had a super weird interaction with a chick once. We met while clubbing, and after seeing each other a few nights there, we talked a bit more and ended up going back to my place. We started getting handsy, and when things started moving along, we kissed, and it was the strangest experience. It was the complete opposite of a spark. We both immediately pulled away and stared at each other's eyes for what seemed like an eternity, trying to grasp what the fudge just happened. Story 48. When I was younger, what eliminated for me was I get a girlfriend. But she, sitting in other dudes' laps, and flirting, and touching on other dudes, then get mad at me and call me a jealous jerk. Well, yeah. I get jealous when my girlfriend is sitting on another dude's junk. And I had another girlfriend I was with for 3 years invite me to a party, and she is tipsy laying in bed with another dude, and I'm standing there awkwardly. Then he tells her, "Let me hold you, girl," and they are cuddling in front of me. And she gets mad at me for leaving and squealing my tires. Well, I did burn out the whole block, LOL. Well, we break up and try to work things out and wants me back, and I met up with her at a club, and she is getting mashed on by 2 dudes while I'm standing there awkwardly. Again, I'm just not into that, LOL. I wasn't even mad. His time I was like, "I'm leaving. Have fun, LOL. Story 49. She let her abusive ex that she'd spent a year supposedly getting over and could not stop complaining about stay after he turned up at the door sobbing. "He's got nowhere else to go. It'll only be for a week." We were only a casual thing, so not upset, but my God, that instantly eliminate my attraction. Story 50. When I realized she slept around a lot, bragged about stealing and finessing, it especially irked me that her normal attitude was a goody two-shoes type character, which means she was putting on face for everyone else, while she was really just a hoe. She hinted at doing something with me, but I just couldn't. And she cried in front of me and everyone else at work, asking if it's because she's not pretty enough, which made it difficult not to clue everyone there in on what she was wanting. I knew she liked me because of how much she used to molest my arms and chest at work, but I tried not to think anything of it. It was embarrassing, the outcome, but she ended up preggo, and I assume happy? I don't care. Story 51. Smoking, lying, when everything is about her, when she only calls me when she needs something. Her life is always a crisis, going from one crisis to another, calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning because she doesn't see my car in the driveway when she lives an hour drive away. Those are a few things. Story 52. Her treatment of her ex. Dated this girl. She was gorgeous. And then we had a coffee with her friend, and they literally, in front of me, talking about how her ex, baby papa, should not get 50-50. In my country, 50-50 is that if the father has 50, the mom has no right to childcare from him. She said she would fight it in court. And me, "Oh, so this guy beat you? Drink? What? No. He is a decent guy. Fair job, new wife, kid, house, car, and so on. So, why just not say yes to 50-50? Seems fair? He should pay." Story 53. We could spend 4 hours sitting on the couch watching TV together, but if I got distracted by my cats for 10 minutes, then I was ignoring her and valuing them over her. She would tell me that I didn't even think enough of her to treat her as well as my cats. I do not miss those conversations. Story 54. Being way too pushy. Was seeing a guy, and it was very casual. Had only kissed him a few times. And then he shoved me against a wall one night and said, "You're mine now. LMAO. First of all, I was scared by that, but also so unbelievably turned off and weirded out that I ended things. It was too much, too soon. Story 55. I had been talking to a girl for a while, and we finally got together. It was an absolutely amazing first date. The kind of night you don't want to end. And then she said something that I thought was a bit racist. A while later, she did it again. No doubt the second time. She said the word. My heart just sank. I knew I couldn't be with her. Story 56. I went on a date with someone I was physically attracted to. We'd been texting for a few weeks, and I enjoyed his wit and humor. We'd gone to high school together, but didn't really know each other back then, 40 years ago. We met for lunch. He told me he'd been married 3 times. He didn't really remember me from high school, but he'd had a huge crush on my high school best friend. He didn't remember me working at the local burger place, but remembered my coworkers, and ended the lunch telling me he'd taken his ex-girlfriend out for lobster, and she showed up in a mini dress and thigh-high stiletto boots. Said her heels made clicking sounds on the wood floor. All the customers stopped to stare, and the women were pissed the men were looking at her. I was thinking, thinking, are you negging me with all of this? Total turnoff. Story 57. I was friends with a really attractive, younger, 10 years, woman. We were both single parents and had lots in common. A relationship was definitely a possibility. We were sitting watching TV one night, and she pulled her foot up and chewed a toenail. Instant turnoff. Story 58. Being tight with money, like literally counting cents. Last straw was we were out having a few drinks with friends. We finished our drinks, and a few minutes later she says, "I bought the last round. It's your turn." Like, I understand being fair, but who cares that much in a relationship if they spent 10 more than me all night? And I would usually be the one to pay for most dates. Instant turnoff. Story 59. Always coming back to sit with me and flirt and talk. But there was one guy at the bar, and maybe I'm judgmental, but IMO, he was a scumbag. And my friend who dragged me there said so because I literally asked her if I am just an jerk or is this guy a scumbag. The type of guy Redditors say should never get a date, but he gets plenty. He saw I was there with girls, and so he was trying to talk to me and get in with the girls. It was the most obvious thing in the world. So later, the girl who I'm flirting with on and off is now flirting with Mr. Dirtbag. And Mr. Dirtbag moves his head in a way that makes the girl think he was going for a kiss, and she was all about that kiss. But he didn't see. He was looking at something, I guess, and I saw her go for the kiss and get blindly curbed. LOL. And that just eliminated for me the fact that she was so readily and quickly available to kiss this dirtbag, this dude that is just grimy and slimy and creepy, and she was all about it. Story 60. The moment she started talking trash about how all of her exes were terrible pieces of garbage, I already noticed some anger issues, but that pretty much said to me, "You're the problem." Later discovered what a horrible mistake I made, and she had major mental issues. Story 61. Darn, I have a misguided one, but can't help it. Woman I met at work and got her number. She was super hot, and I asked her on a date. Our second date, we were chilling in her hot tub in her apartment community during the late afternoon, then went to her place for dinner. She went to the bathroom and came out. About an hour after I went, and when I lifted the seat, there was a huge jerk turd floating with no TP in the bowl. It fudged me up and never talked to her again. Story 62. Went on a date with a girl, and she was being really aggressively rude to our waitress. After the meal, I asked her about it, assuming she knew the girl and they just weren't on good terms. Nope. She was being rude intentionally because she thought it was funny. Most visceral ick I've ever felt from a potential partner. Story 63. Always kind of crushed on her. Used to hang out and have fun in our younger years. But no thank you. Also, I'm Canadian, and so is she, but was born in Arizona. Merry Christmas, everyone. Story 64. Financial irresponsibility. She was my roommate, and almost immediately after moving in, started bouncing rent repeatedly. Mind you, she was a 28-year-old, able-bodied, able-minded woman with no kids and a good 9-to-5. So she could have gotten a side hustle to help herself out of this situation she got herself into. But nope. Her new boyfriend was her universe now. So the idea of a budget or making uncomfortable but oftentimes necessary financial decisions didn't seem to factor in whatsoever. For example, she bounced rent 3 times in a row and then went to Mexico. Another month, she was served with a 3-day pay or quit notice because after 10 days into the month, she still couldn't pay the remaining $600 of her rent. So our third roommate stepped in to bail her out, only for her to be late paying rent the following month and went to Stagecoach. I wouldn't be going to a music festival if I was bouncing rent, but that's just me. Moved out of that living situation so fast and lost friendships, but I know I 100% made the right decision for myself. Story 65. Was walking with my boyfriend and his parents on a vacation. I was a few steps behind him chatting with his mom. He reaches for my hands to pull me close to his back in a sweet reverse hug kind of way, only to rip a loud fart on me and laugh. A couple of years of attraction gone in an instant. We were in our late 20s. Story 66. I was dating this single mother of 3 boys. I had met her at a singles dance. We hit it off pretty good, She was nice-looking, with a good body after having 3 kids. One Saturday night, we were having movie night at her place. The kids were with her sister. We were cuddled up under a blanket because it was a bit cold in her house. Then it started. One little fart, then a whole lot of farts. She was farting so much, the blanket seemed to be jumping, and they stunk. I jumped up and left. Never saw her again. Story 67. Yeah, I'm ending this on Jan 01, 2026. It's super weird and off-putting. I can't even call her as whatever we are, talking. My girl keeps asking her mom on stuff in our private phone call, like she wants everyone to be close to her mom. Story 68. My soon-to-be ex-husband lied about several things from the very beginning. He had never been in a relationship before, so I tried to give him some grace. But it became clear he was a pathological liar. I am still in the midst of sorting through. Long story long, dishonesty and lack of transparency. Story 69. There was this one person I was on a date with who started mocking people who volunteer to help each other because they are suckers. This individual had a business background. However, I am always volunteering in my communities. So, yeah, that eliminate that immediately. Story 70. She told me to fudge off. Story 71. I was talking to someone. She's a single mom who was abandoned by the baby daddy. She disliked his guts. And me, with somewhat similar abandonment issues from my father leaving, could relate to a point. After a few hangouts, I was honestly ready to ask her out, but then I saw that she was not only a firm believer of situationships, but also was a heavy gossiper and had a single and unhappy friend telling her that she should pawn off the responsibility of taking care of her kid so they could go party. So I just stopped communicating with her. I'm still good friends with her younger brother, but that's because it was through him I met this person. But yeah, I saw her true colors and I bolted. Story 72. At a restaurant, they were extremely rude to the server and told me not to tip him after the meal. Things did come out wrong, but that's no excuse to be overly rude and almost verbally abusive. Just showed her true colors and ended things a couple months in. Story 73. We were dating for a few weeks. Maybe 2 months. Had done all the normal physical stuff, stayed over each other's place a few times each, went on a mini vacation. Things were going good. Then, hey, can you read this email from my ex and tell me what you think it mean? WTF. Story 74. Slobs. If someone can't clean up after themselves, I don't want to learn what else they are incapable of. Admittance of plain, bald immaturity. I don't even bother to say anything. The light in my eyes dies then and there. Age does little to help people reach the same stage of life. Narcissistic tendencies. If everything is someone else's fault, the lights aren't on in their head. Fortunately, this one is pretty easy to detect with humor, since these people don't take playful jabs well. Story 75. From past experience, the second someone says something like, "You've made me mad, so now you owe me," or else, yeah, no, I don't owe you. We can talk about the situation like actual mature humans, but I don't owe you anything. Talk to me or don't. I have no time for someone on their 20s or 30s playing games like they are still 16. And quite frankly, the second someone tries to pull that is the second I lose all respect for them. And that means the attraction dies. Story 76. I've always liked to keep a glass of water on my nightstand, so when I wake up the next morning, I've got some water ready to go. Some girl spent the night with me, and when we woke up at about the same time, she lit up a cigarette, it was the 90s and in the South, and used my full glass of delicious water as an ashtray. Peace out. Story 77. Many poop jokes by a 20-year-old man. I'm open about my health issues, which include bathroom issues, when talking to family, but they're not jokes, not nearly as often as this dude, and not to someone I met on Tinder that I haven't even met IRL. One day he said over 10 jokes about poop, literally jokes a 5-year-old would make, barely making sense to adults. He would also refer to it as dookie a lot, and that was when I blocked him. I couldn't take it anymore. Story 78. Messy social media behavior saw them shoot posting, subtweeting on Instagram all the time about their ex and other petty thoughts they had about literally everything. So cringe when you're a fudge adult. People did that in middle school. Don't do it in your 30s. Story 79. Smoking. As soon as those cigarettes come out, it's over, and I've seen it many times. My wife isn't and never has been a habitual smoker, but one time early on in our dating, she had a cigarette with a friend on her way to my house, and I could tell when I kissed her. I told her that I can't have that, and if she's going to smoke, we'd better part ways as friends. She said she wouldn't smoke anymore, and never did. It was close to being a done deal then and there, though. I was absolutely disgusted. Story 80. I had just been intimacy assaulted by someone, and I got into a relationship and explained this to the new boyfriend. He literally did not comprehend what had happened to me and could not keep his hands off of me or stop touching me. I was so grossed out and overstimulated by him, I don't think I ever got to the point of loving him, and I stayed for 5 years. Story 81. She explained that her idea of a relationship involved me paying for everything and her having intimacy with me in exchange. I replied, I've never knowingly paid for it before, so this had better be the best, kinkiest intimacy of my life. Story 82. She will literally talk poorly about other nice women in what seems like an effort to keep me away from them. Again, damaged goods. Why do I get a feeling there are a lot of women out there like this? Story 83. She was exceedingly mean to a young waitress who was so laborious writing down our order: club sandwich, soup and grilled cheese, 2 strawberry shakes. It was obvious she had cognitive or information processing problems. Her excuse was, if she can't do the job, she shouldn't be here. Not much lunch conversation happened after that. I tipped the poor waitress $30, said thanks for putting up with that, drove my date back to work, and blocked her. I also gave the guy who set us up an earful about both his taste in women and his moral values. Then I blocked him. Story 84. Being forced expected to hang out with brain-dead conservative, religious, boring fudge family all the fudge time. I dislike everything and everyone. Fudge this holiday family obligations. These people are fudge boring. All they do is drink and talk about things here and now. Story 85. Texted me tipsy to tell me she loved me, and when I cautiously followed up because I liked her, I asked her to hang out and texted her a few times. She started ghosting me because she obviously didn't mean it. That in and of itself isn't the problem, as she doesn't have to like me. It's that she hurt my feelings and took zero ownership of it. Ghosting culture is pathetic, as it's the thought you have no culpability for the shoot you do when you're drinking. Story 86. Spraying Gulf fritillary caterpillars with bleach because they were eating his passion flowers. He originally told me he was raising them to be butterflies to impress me, so I realized he was good at pretending to be who other people want him to be and masking an underlying viciousness. Story 87. My now ex was spinning out due to a situation of his own making. TBH, we were on the way out for a good bit, and he said something along the lines of, "Shut up," for a good long while. Legitimately in the middle of a conversation, he started and seemed fine. Tried to check on him a few days later. Saw he was active on socials, so I knew he wasn't dead in a ditch somewhere, and peaced out. It was the snap back into, I don't want this to be my life, reality, and I've been weirdly fine ever since. Story 88. Emotional immaturity, which in turn made him try to make me feel his feelings for him. So instead of self-soothing and possibly asking for my thought-strying to resolve issues on his own, he wanted his problems to be our problems. His tasks he had to take care of throughout the week, our tasks we had to take care of throughout the week, to the point I couldn't even live my own life, and everything was for about him. Ew, ew, ew. It grosses me out just thinking about it because so many women do it. I really think sometimes men believe this is a woman's function in their lives. I think some women internalize that and subsequently would agree. It got to the point that when he would touch me, my skin would crawl. I was so disgusted. Story 89. It's always in this thread whenever someone reposts it. But being mean to people, especially behind their back, and showing off as someone shallow, both individually are enough for me to want nothing to do with that person, even if they were ridiculously beautiful. Story 90. It was a poly relationship that was ending. What eliminated it for me was the assertion that she would completely upend her entire life, including her pre-existing other relationships, to be with me if I asked her to. That totally broke the spell, because it was clear that if she'd offer this to me, she'd also offer it to the next guy who was ending things, and there was no real value to trusting her or building anything with her. Turned an emotionally difficult decision into a very easy one. Story 91. The company they keep. One ex had a best friend who cheated on her partner and was proud of it. Another projected herself as if she was in a romantic sitcom and think it's normal to keep all her past partners as friends. Another had friends who constantly judged others for their status. My fiancé is none of those things. Story 92. Let's list a few of them. Dishonesty. I cannot deal with liars. Just tell me if something is wrong or incongruous. It's really okay. The chase ended. When someone you likes you back, there is effort on both parties' parts to flirt and keep up the fun aspect of a relationship. Dropping this entirely, just eliminate it for me. I want to be wanted. If I'm making the effort, I expect her to as well. It's a relationship, and we crew it together. Lack of communication. Tell me what's bothering you, and we can work through it together. Story 93. My ex said I ruined her hot girl's summer, showing off to her friends on a night out. I dumped her when we got home, and now I have a baby with my first childhood crush, and her next partner beat her up so badly that she was in hospital and had to get restraining order. Story 94. This guy I went out with had major road rage. Like going as far as sticking his head out the window yelling obscenities at other drivers. And I worked with the public, specifically children, so I was terrified that someone from work was going to see me in the car with him. He took passes on roads he shouldn't have passed on, too. Scared the crap out of me. Instant turnoff. Story 95. I offered to go to prom with my girlfriend because her boyfriend didn't want to go. I had a crush on my best friend, and he got really upset and tried to kick us out the group limo we were all pitching into. This went on until we stopped talking about it in front of him, and I'm pretty sure he forgot about it by prom. Story 96. Getting angry that I wanted to pay my half of dinner. A man trying to pay is polite. Not allowing me to pay my portion indicated serious control issues, and/or that he only wanted to pay because that made him feel entitled to intimacy. The hair on the back of my neck went up. I got up to use the bathroom, quietly stopped the server to pay my bill, and left. Story 97. About 15 years ago, I was in the stalking stage with someone from a dating site, and she routinely referred to her best friend as her gay best friend. If it had just been once, I'd have just written it off as her trying to signal that he wasn't a cause for concern, but she did it pretty often, and it just made it feel like his homosexuality was a fashion accessory. It felt off for me for a bit, but as soon as I realized why it felt off, I lost all interest in her. Story 98. Took a date to a car show. We were holding hands walking on the sidewalk. A family with children was walking opposite direction. The sidewalk was small. I let go in my hand so they can stay on the sidewalk. She grabbed it back tighter, said, "I'm not letting go of your hand for some fucking kids. They parents should handle them." Broke up with her after the show. Story 99. Took his pants off first, wound up in just his t-shirt and socks. Probably the most unsexy thing to see in the heat of the moment. That alone would have done it, but then he grabbed my chest while saying, "Boobies!" and I was out. We were both in our 20s. Just WTF. Story 100. Was talking to this dude on Tinder. He was handsome, funny. We had a lot in common. He drove 1.5 hours to see me for dinner. I was like 53 at the time, and he said, "I like short girls. They're easier to fit in my trunk," as a joke, like 10 minutes into dinner. The whole conversation was about him and the girls he's been with. Then I paid the bill, and he said, "Wow, I'm surprised you actually did that." And then, on our way out, he literally let the door slam in my face. If he didn't hold the door for me, it wouldn't be a big deal. But you know when someone's walking behind you, how you hold the door a bit so they can grab it? He literally let the door slam in my face. Then we sat by the fountain, and he asked to kiss me on a very shoot-first date with zero chemistry or good energy. Then he got pissy and left because I wouldn't kiss him. Story 101. When he believed a blatantly obvious lie about me, by by his now ex, who he already knew at that point was a pathological liar. She was upset because I fired her for poor performance, so she told people I only fired her because she wouldn't have intimacy with me, despite me being a gay man with a fiancé. Yeah. A lot of stupid decisions were made on all accounts with that relationship, but I learned a valuable lesson on self-worth. Never hire friends, never be just friends with people you're attracted to, and believe people when they show you your place in their life. Story 102. Politics. I'm not very political. I have a few beliefs, and they seem to cross both sides of the fence, but I can't be with someone that takes it so seriously. Sucks the fun out of a relationship. Nothing like nightly conversations about how screwed we are because of this belief or that belief. Story 103. She was dishonest with me. She gaslit me. She invalidated my feelings on a situation. She brought her sister into our relationship, even though I told her that her sister has nothing to do with us. She did not consider my opinions after being with her for 7 years. Story 104. She didn't take my hobbies seriously and made me feel stupid for having said hobbies. I don't care if you're not into the same stuff as me, but you have to respect the things that I like and not make me feel like they are insignificant and pointless. I vowed after breaking up with her that I'd never date anyone that couldn't take my hobbies seriously again. Luckily, my partner of 10 years is awesome, and I never have to worry or feel small about them at all. Story 105. When they accused me of lying about something, I proved them wrong within a few minutes, and he wouldn't apologize. It was so minor if he had just accused, but he just couldn't say he was wrong and sorry. He then wrote a long message months after I left, saying he can't believe I was petty and walked out.